Hello, 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 and welcome to the Brothers of Influence podcast, where we stand to encourage, inspire, and add value in the areas of life, leadership, and community. My name happens to be Ian Williams, your purpose coach. Find me on social media at Ian Coaches. That's what I do. If you're feeling like you're out there with some untapped potential, feeling frustrated, showing up to work day to day unfulfilled, man, I'm your guy. I can certainly help you figure out what it looks like to find your way, find direction, find a sense of purpose, find a sense of fulfillment in your daily life and work, and stop showing up to the job every day unhappy, man. What does it look like for you to really show up as your authentic self, the full version of you, the one that's happy to show up, that's happy to share with and make a difference in the world on a daily basis? That's what the Purpose Coach does, man. He helps you reconcile those ideas with your current reality. So what's good, man? I'm here with two very capable gentlemen, lowercase k kings, fathers, husbands, men of God, lovers of wives, raising children. They got arrows in their quivers. Hey, man, about to change the world. You know what I'm saying? Very grateful, very
Prophesy,
humble.
brother.
We shoulder to shoulder with these brothers.
Hey, I thought it was Sunday there for a minute. My man went smooth. I was like, dang, what happened?
Man, just to get a glimpse, just to you know what I'm saying? Just to have some salt thrown my way, man. I'm blessed from one of these two brothers, man. And they do it on a weekly basis. They throw salt at me. But you know what I'm saying? It's good, because like I said, I'm blessed. I'm gonna let them introduce themselves. Here we go. First up,
I'll tell you, if I just had to come here once a week to be encouraged, I would be here once a week just to be encouraged. I love you, brothers. I am Shante Price. I am your thought coach. And we need to understand that if we want to be anything in life, it starts with an idea. And thinking through that idea and developing that idea and then engaging that idea so that it can manifest in our lives, right? So if you want to start a business, what is that business? What does it look like? What are you going to do in that business? Who are you going to pull into that business? And then how are you going to launch that business? Once again, I am your thought coach, Shante Price. You can find me on all social media networks. Just holler at your boy.
Love it, boy. Y'all got me in over here like, oh, okay. Oh, man, Ian takes us to church. Shante comes in dropping, hey, let's think about this. Let's think through this. We need to know your thoughts. Let's produce something. Your businesses and different things. Hey, listen, my name is Shirai Ledet. I am your leadership locksmith, the professor. Hey, it is the growth coach of Greater Lexington. Listen, I look to motivate, educate, and innovate, help you to inspire you to get from your now to your next. Listen, the one thing I can tell everyone right now who's listening, right? You are in your now season. But the question is, how do you get to that next? How you got to your now, same process and get to your next. But there is a process, right? So I can help you walk that path, whatever direction that looks like. It's not always the same, but we got a purpose coach, we got a thought coach. Hey, between the three of us, we can help you get to that next level in your life.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And what is it? What is this? April 30th, 2022, episode 12 of the Brothers of Influence podcast. We're here, President accounting for. Man, what's good? Because there's a lot good, so let's talk about it.
That's good. Let's talk about the fact that tomorrow's the 5th month of the year. Like May 1st.
Man, you know what?
Right. I mean, when he sit there and said April 30th, I was like, wait a minute, that's the end.
Yeah.
Right. That's the end of April.
Episode 12, I'm thinking episode 2. Man.
Hey, man, you know, this thought just came to my mind, man. Are you guys ready for your flowers?
Are you ready for your flowers?
Are you ready for your flowers, fellas? We all out here doing something. Books is getting written, right? Book signings is being set up. Discussions around diversity, equity, inclusion are happening. Hopefully to make some change in some organizations.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We had some trials this week where perhaps leadership was in action. Leadership had to be in action.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? You know, from week to week, it's like, you know, to a certain level of leadership is required, right? You show up and you connect and you communicate. Then sometimes stuff comes up that really requires the leader to come out of you, probably in a way that stretches you, that's uncomfortable, that you're not too happy about it at the time, but after the fact, if you allowed the leader in you to show up, you know that you made the impact that you needed to make. You know what I'm saying? So we've had some discussions around that sort of thing. So what's good?
Yeah,
I think.
What am I talking about, fellas?
I love that question. Right? Are you ready for your flowers? Because I know I've come across several just things scrolling on my phone, and that's what they're talking about. People getting their flowers, and so I got a little twist to it. So when you ask the question, this is what I'm thinking of. So are you ready for your flowers? But are you prepared for your flowers? Right? Because oftentimes on our journey, that's what we want, right? We want to be acknowledged. We want to be recognized, right? But is that your sole purpose? You know, if you say you have a passion for something, is it necessary? It shouldn't be about the recognition of that thing. It should be about your passion. And when you love what you do, the flowers are going to come. And often they come unexpectedly from someone you've touched, or someone that has been blessed by whatever you're doing, whatever your business might be. And I think those are the ultimate flowers, right? Because depending on what type of business you're in, or what type of profession you're in, some flowers are granted, right? You certain things, they have these achievements awards, or they have the such and such, right? So those things they're going to happen. You know, it's just about when. So that's kind of my thing. Are you prepared for your flowers? And I would say for me, yes. I'm prepared because I've put in the work, you know, and I'm still on the journey. I still don't feel like I'm done working. So as a leader, 6 months I've been in this leadership position. Yes, it's been a headache a little bit, right? And beginning to know my crew, right? Being able to learn how they work, how they think, right? It's a process. So, and within that, I also have a responsibility as a leader that oftentimes, right, I can't just be the nice guy. I have to follow the rules just like they should follow the rules, right? So I'm the supervisor, so it comes down to me, right? Why wasn't this done? Or why was this done like this? You know, I don't want to. I took the supervisor position because I don't want to be in the field. But if I got to go in the field, guess what? That means there's a problem with those working in the field. So,
okay. So, immediate thought process that came to mind, you know, when Ian brought up, you know, are we ready to receive our flowers? And then you dropped in, you know, your flip side of it, are you prepared? First thing that came to mind was work, right? But we have to put in the work. And like you said, Ian, you know, we've been operating in our giftedness and our skill set of leadership throughout this entire week, right? Good, bad, indifferent, it doesn't matter, but you still had to put in the work, right? You still had to show up. And as you was talking, Shante, I was thinking about this thing because I had this whole concept, right? And I have got a couple things working, but I have this. Basically, it's work. That's and I'm really referencing really that whole kind of sowing the seed concept. You gotta work. And then you just sit there and said that you're a supervisor because you don't necessarily want to be in the field, right? That was the role why you took, because you don't have. And if you got to go to the field, that means what? Something's happened. Something's not working, right? Something's not working the way that it needs to. And that whole concept just kind of came like full picture. Like I just saw this whole like a farm field, right? And the reality of it is that regardless if we're looking to receive our flowers or not, the work still has to be done, right? The work still has to be done. And, you know, I always find it interesting when it comes to that concept of just being able to receive our flowers, because the recognition and the recognition of the things that we accomplished is always something that we want. I mean, that's just the motivation behind why it is that you do what it is you do, but it's also the passion behind it. So the question for me would be, what if you didn't get your flowers? Would you still do the work? Right? Would you still do the work if you didn't get your flowers? Because that even goes back to, and I forget which one of y'all said it, because you know me, I'm over here writing, that it's all about your love and your passion to do it, right? And I find that I have made that comment to someone this past week, that this month has been crazy for me. This week has been kind of a little crazy for me too. We're coming up on the end of our, you know, next week is our finals week. So, you know, closing out, you know, getting all these last minute assignments, doing all, like, it's just juggling all this stuff, right? But at the same time, I remember having this conversation with someone, and I basically said, it's been a crazy week, but you know what? It really isn't work when you love what it is you do, right? And when you do love what it is you do, not saying that you don't get tired from the work that you do, but at the same time, you can push through because of the passion and the love that you have, right? So, yeah. Basically, I hear her saying, "Hey, listen. If you listening, listen. You got to put in the work, player. You got to put in the work. When you don't feel like doing it, you got to put in the work. When you're a leader, you got to put in the work, right? And let the work speak for you, because I think you're going to find that passion. You're going to feel that passion, that love for what it is you do behind the work that you produce, or the results that you produce through the work that you do." Right. So.
Yeah, man, you know, for me, I love what both of you guys shared. For me, you know, it's all about showing up authentically, right? Not putting yourself in places, or not having to routinely show up in places where you're not able to be and operate as who you are. You talk about the passion and love and things of that nature, but I would also add freedom to that, you know, being free to be you, free to be me, right? And so leadership is such a journey, and it's such a personal, intimate thing with that delivers outward results, right? So it kind of connects to what you were saying, Sherrod, about how if you love it, like if it's, and even beyond that, like if it's a part of who you are, if it's a genuine expression of who you are. And I think that for the most part, people, those of us that are on a leadership journey, we found something in the developing of leadership that resonated with us deeply. Right? It's not just like, oh, this is this idea. This is how I can get from point A to point B to get what I want. I mean, there's some people that function that way, right? And usually that translates to people vying for a position, vying for influence in the terms of power, right? Where they can have some control, or they have something to gain. But when you say, I can be at my best if I grow as a leader. I can make the difference that I want to make if I grow as a leader. I can increase the impact in the in the area of difference that I want to make in the world every day that I wake up. It's like be found. I want to be I want to be somewhere, be found doing what I feel like I'm created to do. Not just working from paycheck to paycheck, or trying to please someone else and meet somebody else's expectations. Like really work towards fulfilling the potential, my God-given potential. And I think if we're there's a level of effort and work that goes into that, right? It's a journey. It requires intention. It requires personal investment, a willingness to invest in yourself, whether that's monetary or time and effort, et cetera, et cetera. But like, what does it look like, to be found on that journey?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things that you dropped, man. And it's funny because I was just, you brought up something that made me think about a post I put this week. And this week, man, I just been, so you can find me on LinkedIn. That's kind of my spot, right? Y'all know that. That's where I drop my thing. So I had made a couple of posts this week, really strong around leadership. One of the things you said, bro, was that caught me was you said that, again, leadership is that outward results, but it's that inward work, right? It's that internal work, right? That intrinsic work that gives that extrinsic results, especially when we think about leadership. But and I think it was like a day ago, so I'm grabbing it right off LinkedIn, man. I said leadership is more about connection than definition, because I think a lot of times we find that in this whole idea behind leadership, I made another post earlier, just thinking through like how we got here. One of the things that I teach in entrepreneurship is that in order for us to understand how we can provide and add value and come up with solutions and solve problems, is first we got to identify how we got here, right? So even with leadership, like leadership isn't new. It's been around forever, and there's been great minds that came before us that was dropping knowledge, man. And I don't know where I was at, what I was reading, or what I was listening to, but it was something that was so profound but so simplistic, and I'm like, oh wow. And it was said by somebody who had passed, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but it made me just think that, again, leadership is all about connection. And I think sometimes we get too caught up in identifying, okay, so how do we define leadership? Right? It's not really about the definition, but I wrote this. I said, leadership is about connection, not definition. With connection comes greater understanding. With greater understanding comes great perspective. With greater perspective comes greater impact, and with greater impact comes greater value, right? And I said, this is what my 1 o'clock thought of leadership, right? But to what you were just saying, Ian, bro, that's it, right? Like leadership allows us to get to that greater aspect of who we are, especially when we start doing the inner work that's necessary to get the outward results that we're trying to produce through leadership, right? Not telling people where to go, but guiding them to where they need to go, not for our own benefit, but for their benefit, right? Lifting them, not pushing them.
Awesome. So when you mentioned the paycheck to paycheck thing, it's like literally over half Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Literally over half. I think it's going up towards 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And when you said that, it took me back to prison, right? Because I had one of the best jobs in prison, and I was living paycheck to paycheck. So just say, for instance, I think I've maybe mentioned this before. The most I ever made in prison was, I think, $500 and something. And that's what I got paid that month. You only get paid once a month in prison. But if I told you how many hours I had to work to get there, you'd be like, I was a slave, right? But I learned within that situation that I couldn't live like that. Just spending money just to spend it, just have junk in my locker, stuff that wasn't really benefiting me, right? Now move forward till I getting out of prison, I fall back into that because I'm out, I'm free, right? I can move around. I got a job that's paying me not $500 a month. I might be giving $1,500 a month. So it's 3 times as much. But I had to adjust. Especially being I never had a job in the real world, right? I had to adjust, but I get caught up in that cycle of living paycheck to paycheck, buying stuff, spending just because I had it. But I had to change my thought process, right? Because I had to put into perspective what's important. What do I want? Where do I want to be? And oftentimes, people want more. People want more. They want to have more for themselves, for their children, or what have you, but they don't know how. And it's because they haven't had the examples. They haven't had the people in their lives or they haven't just listened, right, to the reality of this is what you need to do. And one thing I've learned is with people will spend money on stuff they want, but they're quick to say that what they don't have, right? Quick to say what they don't have. But once again, it's a thought process, right? You have, I had some conversations with some of my family about how we can't be living where when someone dies, we have to scramble amongst family to bury them, right? We have to get out of that thought process, because you spend $20 on junk, $20 on weed, $20 on whatever, but that $20 is enough. If you skip it one time, that's enough for you to be insured so that you can be buried if that's what you want, right? And it's just about thought process. How do we think about stuff? I've never, people will argue to death about what they don't have. But if you give me a moment to sit down and you to be honest with me and say, okay, I spend money on this, there's always a place where you can find just enough to get to where you want to be. Some people it's going to take longer, some people not. So
no, that's real. And I think so much of the journey, what that reminds me of, is that so much of the journey is about awareness.
Yeah.
So much of it is where you're aware of yourself, you're aware of your situation, and really taking the time to sort through it, right? And I think when it comes to like financial reconciliation, like you got to count it up, right? Add them dollars up, see where the money is going, in order to really take control of your finances. And that's not a natural process for most people. Most people, I'd rather not think about what I'm spending and how I'm spending, like what my habits are, because usually we fall into what's comfortable. And what's comfortable is unfortunately often not what's healthy or what's best for us. And so, that's a great illustration of the leadership journey in general. You know what I'm saying? Because when we talk about leadership, what we'd say, fellas, self-leadership, right? Self-leadership, I say, is the toughest leadership, right? And that's, when you're going through your finances and you're sorting through and you're figuring out what your habits are, where your money's going, you account for every dollar, right? And you'd be like, I didn't realize I was spending that much in this area. And I'm spending so much here that I'm not able to do what I want to do over here. And I've always just said, I've not been able to do it. Like I didn't have the ability. But if I stop this thing that's unnecessary, then I can reallocate that, just like what Shantae was saying. And that's the same thing with your leadership. That's the same thing with your faith journey too, man. When someone, we get we get comfortable falling into these patterns, and we're like, man, I wish I read my Bible more. I wish I prayed more. I wish I studied more. I wish I had time to go to Bible study. And well, how you spending your time? Count the cost up. Where that money going? You know what I'm saying? When we talk about money, at this point, I'm talking about whatever spends, which is your time, which is your attention, which your efforts, and figure out what's really most important to you, and putting the effort, put what you spend into those areas that are most important. Once you realize you reallocate those resources, you had a lot more flexibility than you thought. And so that's the same thing in life, leadership, and community. What sort of difference do you want to make out here? What sort of impact do you want to make? What kind of father do you want to be? What kind of husband do you want to be? If there's things that you feel like you want to do, which usually when you feel like you want to do something, it's because you should do it. That's a major key. Start at the top of that should list, right? Reallocate those resources, and start doing that thing you feel like you should do. And I always say, like, start, one of the quickest ways to change your life is start at the top of that I should list. I'm saying, if you're not happy with where you are, start at the top of that I should list. That's one of the quickest ways. I come out one by one.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now hey, listen, this is Brother and Influence podcast, y'all. If y'all listening and y'all ain't taking notes, man, hey, I'm gonna take notes for you. I got plenty of them over here. Right. Hey man, y'all killing the game. Ian, dude, you were so right. And what I love about what both of y'all brothers said, and I loved it because you really did sum it up, bro, with just really, you brought pretty much all this to one big component of just reallocating your resources, right? And one of the things that I learned about resources is just another word for strategy, right? Resources is just another word for strategy. I mean, why do I say that? Because strategy is a reallocation of your resources. So it's taking what you have, using what you have, and using that to get where you're trying to go, right? And we're talking about, again, your finances and, just whatever you need to work on within your life. It's never the fact that we don't have the resources necessary to get where it's just how we're using them. And that's just because we don't have a strategy. There's a book that I'm listening to right now by Patrick Bet David, the Valuetainment, I believe. Big, I believe it's insurance company or whatnot. And he has this book called Your Next 5 Moves, right? Your Next 5 Moves. And what made me think about that, bro, Ian, you said, really talking about just self-awareness. And one of the things he said in this book was this. He said that, of our next 5 moves, one of those things have to be knowing who you are, knowing what you want to do, why you want to do it, right? And it's really taking the time. And he was, and in his book, he basically talked about, again, in order for him to identify what he wanted to do, he had to take inventory, right, of his resources. He had to come up with a strategy. He had to identify what his next moves were. Right. And what he basically said was, he said, look, someone had asked him a question, right? Or no, gave him a list of like these, I forget, it was like a crazy amount of questions. But the questions were basically for him to answer for himself. So what I got from that and what I want to share with you guys now is this. Like, again, when we think about our resources and we think about our strategy and then thinking about this whole self-awareness component, man, the first thing you got to start with is like, what is it that I'm trying to do? Who do I want to be? And how am I going to get there? But in order for you to understand that, you got to know who you are, right? Got to know what it is, or who you are, how you're going to get there, because you are the main resource. Well, let me take that back. You're not the main resource. You got to be connected to the main source, right? Which is God, but you are a part of that resource. He's giving you skills. He's giving you talents. He's giving you everything you need. But we just got to understand how to allocate those so we can get the results that we're looking for, right? So what are your next 5 moves, right? What are your next 5 moves? Think about that, right? And I love it. And I'm going to because he said, don't go past 5, because if we get too far ahead, then we're going to be too focused on trying to get to, he said, focus on 5, right? Another thing about planning, right? One of the things that I tell clients when it comes to their business, don't look at the year plan. Break that bad boy up, right? What's the first 90 days look like? Then what's the second 90 days? What's the third 90 days, right? When you look at things from those different chunks, it's a lot easier to swallow. It's a lot easier to attack, right? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? So reallocation of resources, that is our strategy. What is your next 5 moves?
Man, that's awesome. I got one for you, Sherrod. I think this is what you meant. So we are his main resource, right? We are God's main resource.
What you said,
right?
What
That's what I heard when you said it. Yeah. But
yeah,
one thing about, and I've said this many times, that's what our main 2, or the most powerful 2 assets that we have at our disposal is our mind and our time. our mind and our time. And we don't utilize them. We make excuses about time, about how we don't have enough of it. But once again, if we step back to just what Brother Sarad was just saying, the leadership locksmith, what he was saying is what we have to take control of it, right? We have to look at it and say, what do I want to do with this next 90 days? That's how you take control of your time. You can say you don't have it all you want, but until you sit down and see what you're doing with it, you're lying to yourself, right? Most people, if they sit down, they'll have an average. They'll have an average. I don't care who you are. We know some busy people, right? And we're going. We have hours that we can utilize to do things that we want to do if we sit down. And then when it comes to our mind, right? Our mind, we tend to just let things run through our minds. We don't have any control with our mind, right? Because we're just doing so many things. And in the back of our mind, there's always those things we want to do. Oh, I wish I could travel here, or I wish I could do this. You can do those things, but it's about perspective. What are you going to do to get there? You can't just be saying, okay, when I get this next promotion, because guess what? You get that next promotion and you still spending all that money because you haven't put everything into perspective, right? You're still broke. You got a $10,000 raise. You're still broke. You getting a bigger bonus. You're still broke. Biggie said, more money, more problems. And it's true. It's true because we don't put things in proper perspective on our journey when we say there's things we want. And until we begin to do that, we're not going to make it to where we want to be. We're not going to make it to the pinnacle of our success, right? To that person. Or we're not going to have the family we want, right? We're not going to have the house. You can't tell me you just want a big house. That don't make sense to me. What do you mean? Show me. And a lot of people, okay, I don't have it. Vision boards are very important. If I put a Bentley on there, but I only making $10 an hour, ain't nothing wrong with that. That means you got some work to do. But guess what? History has shown us that people that was making $10 an hour got that Bentley now, right? The right way, not the wrong way. And so it's just the process. And we have to think through these things. One of the hardest, especially dealing with finances, one of the hardest things for people is to sit down and write down everything they're spending their money on. And guess what? If you don't do that, which is the first thing, you'll never get out of debt. You'll never have that extra money for that vacation. You'll never have that extra money for that big house you want to have with 20 rooms that you ain't gonna clean, right? So, right? Just too much. And I've just learned from my experience that you can have any of those things. But if you don't take the time to put things in proper perspective, you're gonna have none of those things.
Hey, listen. It's your boy, Shante Price, your dot coach, just dropping huge bombs, right? He's also a financial coach, if you couldn't tell by the financial knowledge that he was just dropping. But listen, bro, hey, you said something that I just want to make sure that we reiterate and that everybody understands. You said that, again, the other resources that we have, or the main resources that we have, is our mind and our time. And you know what I find interesting about that is that, again, you are absolutely right. The thing that I think that came to mind when you said that is that we don't need to use them independently, but we need to use them collaboratively, right? What we'll do is we'll be thinking, like, when you take the resources and you just use them in individual components, you're only going to get so much. But when you start putting those different resources, our mind and our time, understanding what our thoughts are, what it is that we're trying to accomplish, allocating the time towards those thoughts and putting in the practices and the work, man, you're a force to be reckoned with. But I love it, man. Yeah, your mind and your time, right? Don't look at them independently, but we have to work at them collaboratively.
Yes, sir. And you know what I love about this conversation is, just to be real, like, this is a good reminder for me. It's not like I haven't heard this, haven't understood this. Clearly, I've heard it and I've understood it because I can speak it. But I'm what I'm saying and what I'm being transparent about is like I need to be reminded like this is something, this is an area of growth that I need to focus on, right? Because I've focused my time and definitely worked on my mindset, and I'm a mental health advocate, so I'm mindful of that as well. But honestly, I haven't always managed my time well. I haven't always, I I think at this point in the game, especially being as busy as life gets with being a father, and a husband, and having a business, and trying to provide, and then trying to collaborate, coordinate. I'm doing all those things, and all of them sound like they're things that I should be doing. But oftentimes, while I'm doing those things, there's things that I know that I need to do that I'm not talking about because they just not getting done. Right? So, taking care of my temple physically, man. Since 2020, it's been inconsistent. I'm paying for the gym every month. I ain't been in there every month since 2020. I'm just being honest with you. Now, prior to that, I was going hard. I was feeling good, things like that. But that's just an example. I'm just being transparent.
Yeah.
Working on my faith. Like my son is 6, and I don't know. It just seems like we're having a lot more conversations around the idea of faith and the role that the Creator plays in our daily lives and things like that. And so, for example, like I before I got up this morning, my son asked his mother to spend some time studying the Bible. You know what I'm saying? So it's
Wow.
like if that's where my son is, where I need to be at, and not that I need to use that to compare or put myself down, but I know that I should be doing more in that area as far as sowing into myself, there's no what I love about it is it's all about the relationship, right? So it's not like I feel like I'm being shamed, and I don't think it's God's intention that I should shame myself in regards to whether I'm, consistently in the Word as much as I feel like I should be. But I think that the fact that the desire is there, I'm not honoring myself by not allocating resources to show up in that area for myself. And I need to be honest about that. So these are just examples, man, and I'm saying that all that to say is that, like, we haven't arrived. We're not teaching and talking about these things because we have mastered them. We are still practicing, just like we talked about last week. We're practicing, and we know, because we have practiced, we know the benefits that can come from real committed, intentional action in these areas. And so this is one of those places where we come to be reminded of how sweet it is.
Yeah. Hey, man, like, that's dope about your baby boy, man. And here's the reality. Like, he just didn't wake up like that, though. Right? He saw somebody reading. He saw somebody studying. Right? So, yeah, don't be too hard on yourself, brother. Right? He saw somebody.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm trying to. It's like in the Old Testament. I can't remember what the prophet was, but it's the word of the Lord is bitter, but it go down sweet like honey.
And I think it's Sherrod, he made that point. He's seen somebody doing it. And I think that's the reason. Like, it comes back to us. We're there as teachers, as trainers for our children, even for our wives, oftentimes, right? And then we see that we've fallen back because we know the responsibility within the household, but we see we've fallen back, and then we see them almost like they're picking up where we're leaving off, and so it you know, the heart jumps and it's like, wow, right? Let me get back on track, right? So even like what you said about the workout, right? That's a mind thing. That's why these gyms, they know if they can get you to sign up, 9 out of 10, you're not gonna be there half the time. They're just getting free money. They know this. This scientific. Right. It's about, you know, we pay for stuff, forget it. Right? We look at our bill at the end of the year, we like, what is this recurring bill? Something we signed up for at the beginning of the year and never did it once. Just money. And just think about it. Even if it's $10, right? That's $120. What could you have done with that $120 that year that you did nothing with, right? And that's it gets back to us being just being more kind. It's a process, right? Guess what? It happens to us all. You know, I had a gym membership. It happened to me. Sherrod probably had one. It happened to him. Anybody that's ever had a membership, it's probably happened to. That's just the reality of it, right?
Sure.
Because we get caught up in life, right? So, and my big thing about like even studying the Bible, like being in prison, of course you have more time. You know, like when I first got to prison, the prison I went to, we had a Bible study on Monday, church service Monday night, Bible study on Tuesday, church service on Wednesday, Bible study on Friday, Bible study sometimes and church service on Saturday. Then we had a Bible study and church on Sunday. I was there for 10 years, right? Eating, consuming. So, and even after I got out of prison, a lot of that time, that helped, that sustained me, right? Because now I got more responsibilities. I got to get a job. I gotta pay bills. Right? And it sustained me for a long time. But eventually, guess what? I gotta recognize that, you know what? I gotta get back in there and start digging in the word. Right? I gotta go back gardening. Right? I gotta go pick some fruits and vegetables, because eventually the nutrients wore off because I just got comfortable. And once I recognized that, I had to go back to the store, right? I had to go find me some I had to go get me that belt, those shoes, right? That breastplate. Had to go shopping, baby. And it's just, that happens to us. Now the thing is, what do we do when it happens? And I think that's what we're talking about, right? What do we do when it happens? We readjust. That's what it's all about. We readjust, because it's gonna happen. I don't care at what level you're at in your life, it's gonna happen, and we just gotta recognize it and readjust.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think it's just also great reminders as well, right? I think we need reminders every now and then of, you know, don't forget, or we sometimes forget how we got to where we are, you know, and then when we get to where we are, we're trying to, you know, consistently put into practice some of the things we sometimes get stuck, right? And those reminders are there to help us to understand, hey, don't forget, right? Don't forget, like, this is what you put into practice. And because you put that into practice, that's why you got to where you are now, right? And if you're stuck, that might mean that something that you were practicing, you then put down. One of the things that when you were talking about that, Ian, you brought up like what we talked about last week about practice. You know, practice benefits the person doing the work, right? Because then, you know, what is practice for? Practice is for what? When it's time for game time. Here's the reality. If I don't practice and I know that I have a game, if I show up, I'm going to go to the game, but guess what? Either I'm going to play or I'm not going to play. And if I do play, I didn't put in the practice in order for me to actually get the results that I'm looking for. So it's on you, right? So you got to put in the work, right? And what I love about what also came to mind to me about with practice really benefits you, not from your ability to perform, but it's all in the preparation, mentally, physically, emotionally, right? Spiritually, like all those different components come into practice. right? No matter what it is we're talking about. I mean, you can relate that to sports. You can relate that to just your life. You can relate practice to any aspect of your life. And we're always got reminders around this, letting us know, hey, look, listen. And I just love it because I literally feel and hear God saying, like, those little things that just pop up, like, hey, don't forget. Remember, hey, don't forget. Right? It just puts a smile on my face, man, because he's consistently just dropping those little whispers. Hey, don't forget. Hey, listen, remember what you did, player. Hey, right? And it's those subtle things, right, that make the big difference. You know, one of the things that, you know, I think that we get caught up in is that we think we got to do major things in order to get major results. Understanding that it's also the little things that actually produce the greatest results, not the big things, right? It's the little things that we do consistently, right? And I definitely know that that's been the testimony in my life, right? There's been times where I got off track and I'd be like, shoot, I gotta, you know, I gotta kick that 75-yard field goal, or I need to do, you know, something that's crazy in order for me to get back to where I was. And then I'd be like, dang, can I kick that? Or I try to kick it and then I miss, and then it starts, the spiral begins, right? Instead of just going, all right, let me get back to the little steps, right? Just face what's in front of me. Again, what are your next 5 moves? Right? What are your next 5 moves? So yeah, I appreciate that little nugget, man, because that's huge. Like, there's just reminders all over the place, right? But we have to be willing to see them, identify them, and then shoot. Hey, just get back to practice. Lace them up and get back at it.
Do something about it. Do something about it, man.
Yo, there it is. Do something about it, right? Like, can we say, right, what Shante talked about, the mind and the time, right? At that particular point, like, you gotta do something about it. So you need to not just think about it and then just look at the time, bro, but you gotta put those together. Let that work together, right? Collaborate.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I love it.
Yes, sir. We are here with the Brothers Influence podcast. And we've talked about quite a bit today, man. And but you know, the beautiful thing about it is, like, we're speaking from the heart, right? I think what I'm finding about our show is, and this is just becoming a place where we can just stir up the gift every week. we stirred up the gift every week, boy. Sometimes we get out here, we come in dry. We like, man, I had all this stuff going on. I'm tired, bro. You know what I'm saying? By the end, about 5 minutes in, that gift done started sparking. It started, the spin done started. The spin cycle started.
Hold on. Here we go.
Well, man.
Sometimes it's just a spark, right? That's all you need.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it's just a spark that starts the fire. Just a spark. And you know, we all grab it, you know, we all get ignited differently, but you know, like you said, no fail. No matter how we come on, you know, something's gonna spark it, get us stirred up, get us out of that rut, whatever it might have been. So,
and that goes back to what you said, even I think in the very beginning too, bro, Ian, when you talked about just being authentic, right? I definitely know that when we come on here and we get together, right, and we just drop something in the atmosphere and the environment, man, it's like authentically we connect with it and then we start flowing. Because it's, yeah, like you said, man, we're not speaking from, you know, something we just read in the book, but what we read in the book plus the practice that we put into place plus the experience that we learned from that whole like we put it all together and try to put one nice bow on it, right? From the 3 different perspectives, from the 3 different experiences, from the 3 different results. And for me, like, there's so many different things that I think we pull together, you know, and then God touches it and then it just produces something completely different, right? And I would love to even hear those that are watching the broadcast and listening and seeing it and watching it later, just what they get from the conversation. Because here's a reality: just because you're not a part of the conversation doesn't necessarily mean that you can't get something from it when you do listen. Like, there's so much to be said when you have like-minded people coming together, right? Really trying to help and build one another, right? Not looking at each other from the perspective of I know more than you do, or I'm better, or whatever the case, but just really authentically saying, hey, bro, this is what I've experienced, this is what I've seen, this is what I've dealt with, this is what I'm dealing with, right? Like you said, wow, nobody on here is perfect, and we're all still on the journey. The reality of it is the journey won't end until it's time to go. I'm just saying, right? The journey don't stop, right? But the question is what steps are we putting into practice? Right? Yeah. Hey, like what things are we doing, right? Where is our journey leading us? Like, are we putting in the strategies? Are we using our resources? Are we reallocating our resources? Are we identifying specifically like what it is we're trying to do, how we're going to get there, and then get the community behind us that we need to support us while we're doing it, right? So it's all that in a bag of chips.
Yes, sir. And that's one of the things that lies at the heart of the Brothers Influence community. It's weird. I think what this podcast is an expression of that community. Once a week, every week, 10 a.m. on Saturday. So you're out here demonstrating what it's like to be in community, being shoulder to shoulder with one another, really just kind of walking through life, right? We're navigating life together. And this is not the end all be all, but it just shows how much you can accomplish. Because every day, every week we get off here, we're fired up, we're ready to get back on the grind, to put in the work, to be intentional about who we are and what we're putting out in the world. It goes a long way to help us stay on track, right?
Yep.
We're not perfect, but we're perfectly in pursuit.
We're not perfect, but perfectly in pursuit. Perfectly said.
Yeah, man. We show up and we try, and it might seem like we downplaying something, but that's real though. Like, yeah. How many individuals, how many men, fathers, husbands, like, aren't showing up and aren't trying? We're consistently showing up and trying, and if we fall, I can look for my brother to help pick me up.
I see the wheels turning.
Yeah, because he dropped something, man, and we coming on the end, and I'm like, bro, why would you drop that?
Bro.
Yeah, why would you drop that like that? Man, yeah, out here trying, man, and that's real, because the reality of it is, our men, hey, we are out here trying, even if you feel like if you're not, or you don't even know that you are, just keep trying, right? So my final thoughts was this, man: don't stop, don't give up, don't quit. Even when that's the easy thing to do, don't. And hey, if you need help, ask. It's always funny how we're looking for answers, but we don't ask the question, right? So my final thoughts is just be encouraged, don't stop, keep moving, keep trying. Hey, ask the question, ask for help.
Awesome. As believers, we believe that we're pruned to produce, right? John 15, pruned to produce. So if you believe that you're being pruned, yet you're not producing anything, you have to ask yourself why. You have to ask yourself why. Think of Job. We can look at Job's story and see and say, well, God, why did God do this? And he even asked, why are you making me your target? But let me tell you something. If you are a believer, if you're walking in the faith, if you're trusting in God on a daily basis to do what he's promised you he would do, challenges are going to come just because of that. So it wasn't God saying to Job, I'm going to do this to Job, but Job was an upright man. So guess what? These things had to come. So if you're running around talking about how good God is and there's nothing happening in your life, ask yourself why.
Reverend.
Listen, Reverend. It's the Brothers in Influence podcast, April 30th, 2022. It was brought to our attention. It's the end of the 4th, and by tomorrow, the beginning of the 5th month of the year. And we just want to invite you to join us, man. Join us in the community. If you rocked out with us and what we've shared resonates with you, brother, welcome to the tribe. Welcome to the tribe, man. Don't underestimate the benefits of a community that is for you, that sole purpose is to encourage you, to help build you up, and help you live out in the expression of your authentic self and who you believe God has created you to be. Don't underestimate it, man. We here for you, fellas. Brothers and Fools podcast, where we stand to encourage, inspire, and add value in the areas of life, leadership, and community. We out of here.
Peace.